We're talking things that stress us out, like the future, comparison, acceptance, and expectations. God wants to do something with our stress. He might want to carry it for us. He might want to use it to show us something about ourselves or about others.
The future might be the most stressful thing out there. It's a scary thing, the unknown. Like, you can train, you can study, you can plan, you can strategize, you can do all of that, but the future is still unknown. Probably the number one cause of anxiety is the future. And anxiety is essentially like worry about something that hasn't happened yet. That's anxiety. In a nutshell, anxiety is about worrying and stressing about the future. If you and I want to deal with the stress of anxiety, we have got to go to the source of peace, which is God, and see what He says about the unknown future. And in the Bible, the book of 1 Peter, chapter 5, it says this: "So humble yourselves under the mighty power of God, and at the right time, He will lift you up in honor. Give all your worries and cares to God, for He cares about you." There is a ton of good wisdom in that verse about how to deal with the stress of anxiety. And the best way to do this is to understand that, like, Peter, the guy who wrote this, he knew Jesus. Like, he walked with Jesus. So if there's a person to learn from about this, it's Peter. And he says this, he says, look, God cares for you. God is God, you are you, and God cares for you. If you want to deal with anxiety, the number one thing to understand is God cares about anxiety. He cares about your stress. He cares that you're freaked out sometimes. He cares that you're stressed out about the future. He cares for you. You can give all your worries to Him. You can give all your worries to God because He's God. And because He cares for you, He can handle all of the stress of your anxiety. You're allowed to give that to God. You don't have to carry that by yourself. You don't have to carry the unknown or the frustration about being frustrated. You can give all of that to God. He wants to take it for you. Does that mean that everything gets fixed? Absolutely not. But it means that you have a way to take some of that stress and give it to God. Why wouldn't we want to do that? The stress of anxiety might be weighing you down and feeling like it's pushing you down further and further. And you might feel like God doesn't care about you, and you might feel like God can't handle your problems. I want you to know this: God cares about you. God wants to get your anxiety lifted off of you, and at the right time, He will lift you up in honor. At the right time, the future will get more clear. Will it ever be fully clear? Absolutely not. But God cares for you. God wants your worries, and at the right time, He will lift you up in honor and give you clarity on your next step. So if you're anxious right now about the future, if you're stressed out about the future, I want you to know this: if you humble yourself before God and understand that God is God, you and I are not. And if we are humble enough to say, God, we're stressed out, we're anxious, and we're dealing with anxiety about whatever it is, and you allow God to take that from you, you give that to God and let Him take it from you, at the right time, He will lift you up. It seems like the reoccurring theme with all this is dealing with stress of any kind: expectations, acceptance, comparison, anxiety, the future, whatever that might be. It all comes down to one word: humility. There's a famous writer, C.S. Lewis, and he says it like this: humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Humility is understanding who you are, understanding who God is, and understanding who the people around you are in God's eyes. That's humility. If you want to deal with stress of any kind, stress about the future, stress about expectations, stress about acceptance, stress about anxiety, stress about anything, the key in all of that is humility. God's promise is not to take away your stress. God's promise is that if you are humble, you will be less stressed. And you'll be able to deal with the stress that comes from life. You want to be less stressed? Be humble. Trust God.